Let's stick to arrays and objects. Another important nice syntax, which you'll see a lot in modern JavaScript and also TypeScript projects, is array and object destructuring. How does it work? Well, let's start with our array, which we got, the hobbies array, which got 2 hobbies. Let's say you want to extract these 2 hobbies and store them in variables or constants. Of course, we can do that with hobby1 equal hobbies for index 0, which is the first element, and the same maybe with hobby2 for hobbies at index 1. This will pull out these 2 elements and store them in constants. It took us 2 lines of code, and the more elements you want to retrieve, the more lines of code it takes us. Array destructuring allows us to shorten that. With array destructuring, which also works with let, by the way, not just with const, you add square brackets on the left side of the equal sign, which is an unusual place. Haven't seen that before. And on the right side, you have the array, which you want to destructure. Now, destructure really means that you pull elements out of the array. And here on the left side, between these square brackets, you store them in constants, or if you use let, in variables. So here we could then have hobby1 and hobby2. And what this syntax does is it goes through the hobbies array, takes the first element and stores it in a constant with this name, takes the second element, stores it in a constant with this name. You can even add rest parameters here and have remaining hobbies here. In case the hobbies array had more elements than just 2, then all the remaining elements, which you didn't pull out into hobby1 or hobby2, will be stored in a new array called remaining hobbies. So they will be merged together into a new array. By the way, destructuring does not change the original array. So if we console log hobbies, hobby1 and hobby2 here, you'll see that hobbies is still the old array. It's not empty or anything like that. So the values which we pull out, in quotes, are really just copied into new constants or variables, not really removed from the array. Now that's array destructuring. We got the same for objects. We got our person here. Now let's say we want to store name and age in standalone constants or variables, just as array destructuring. Object destructuring works with both const and let. Here I'll go with const, and now we can use curly braces on the left side of the equal sign, also a new syntax, I guess, and have our object, or the variable pointing at the object, on the right side. Now, by the way, please note, this is not an object type I'm assigning here. I don't have a colon here. It's really just curly braces like this on the left side without a colon after some constant name. So I'm not assigning the type of the value that could be stored in a constant. I'm really just using a special syntax. Because here we now also can refer to property names we have in an object, for example, name and age, to pull the values for these keys out of person and store them in constants of the same name. Now here I'm getting errors because at the very top I already have an age variable, and name turns out to be a globally available variable, which exists anyways. So there, the workaround would be to really just use a different key name here. First name, for example, and now we can pull out the value by that key here. So this is how object destructuring works. The important thing here is, for array destructuring, elements are pulled out in order, because an array is an ordered list. In objects, the order is not always guaranteed, and therefore we don't pull elements out by position, but by key name. So the values or the names you specify here between the curly braces are not arbitrary. You can't come up with names here. These have to be property names you find in the object so that the values for these keys can be pulled out of that object. And then they're stored in constants or variables of the same name. If you would want to override that name, you could do so with a colon here. Again, it's not a type assignment here, it just sets a new name. So this is all JavaScript syntax, has nothing to do with TypeScript. So here we could store this in a username constant, for example, and therefore thereafter we can console log username and age, but not first name, because I basically overrode first name to be named username in the constant which we create when we pull out values here. Age is not overwritten, so we can use it like that. Again, this is not a type assignment here. This is JavaScript syntax where we alias rename a property we're pulling out of person. Also, just as before with the array, the person object itself is not changed. We really just copy these values out of the object. And therefore, we get this output here.